Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this should be interesting. It is titled Death Penalty for Child Sexual Abuse that Does Not Result in Death. I'm not really sure what the whole thing is about. I just read a little bit. So we'll find out. The United States Supreme Court previously held that the death penalty for non-homicide crimes, such as rape of an adult woman or the sexual assault of a child, are disproportionate to the crime and violate the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. Obviously, I would not agree with that. In 2023, the Florida legislature passed a law that provides for the death penalty for child sexual abuse in defiance of Supreme Court precedent. Bam. Several other state legislatures are considering similar legislation. I do wonder, though, like when you've got police hiding P-files, etc., how it'll go. Kennedy versus Louisiana, 2008. In January 2008, the United States Supreme Court agreed to hear the appeal of a man in Louisiana who had been sentenced to death for the rape of a child who did not die. Patrick Kennedy was convicted and sentenced to death in 2004 for the rape of his 8-year-old stepdaughters. Mr. Kennedy challenged his sentence as a violation of the Eighth Amendment based on the rarity of a death sentence for a non-homicide crime. The court had last considered a related issue in 1977 when it prohibited capital punishment for the rape of an adult woman in Coker versus Georgia. While Coker did not specifically address the rape of a minor under the age of 12, many viewed the decision as effectively limiting the death penalty to the crime of murder. In addition to Louisiana, 5 states in 2008 allowed the death penalty for sexual assault against a minor, though no one had been sentenced to death in those states. Montana, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Texas. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's statute, ruling that a death sentence was disproportionate to the crime and unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment. The court held that all such laws were contrary to the national consensus restricting the death penalty to the worst offenses. That is the worst offense. You guys know who's in charge, right? Which has been defined as murder. Harming a child is just as bad. Honestly, it's worse in some cases. Consequently, both Mr. Kennedy and the only other man, Richard Davis, sentenced to death for this crime, were resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Do wonder if the other prisoners knew what they had done. In its analysis, the court noted that making a death sentence a possibility for these crimes was embraced by just 6 of the 50 states. A minority view. You should love the way they word things, right? It's really not a minority view, it's their view. Y'all heard? Justice Anthony Kennedy, writing for the majority, stated, based both on consensus, it's their consensus, not ours, you know that. In our own independent judgment, our holding is that a death sentence for one who raped but did not kill a child, that is killing a child in a way, and who did not intend to assist another in killing the child, unconstitutional under the 8th and 14th Amendments. The court held that whether the death penalty is disproportionate to the crime depends on the standards elaborated by controlling precedents and on the court's own understanding and interpretation of the Eighth Amendment's text, history, meaning, and purpose. Post-Kennedy legislation, Florida. In April 2023, the Florida legislature passed a bill allowing the death penalty for sexual battery of a child under the age of 12. Scientology should take heed. After the urging of Governor Ron DeSantis in January 2023. At a news conference, Governor DeSantis criticized the Supreme Court's decision in Kennedy, telling reporters he believes that precedent was wrong. We do not believe the Supreme Court in its current iteration would uphold it. And so we are going to be exploring ways to facilitate some capital trials if you have the worst of the worst. In May 2023, Governor DeSantis signed legislation that expands death penalty eligibility to those convicted of sex crimes against children. According to language in their bill, lawmakers echoed Governor DeSantis' belief that the court's ruling in Kennedy was wrongly decided. You guys know what's up, right? You guys know what's up. And that such cases are an egregious infringement of the state's power to punish the most heinous crimes. Facts. The bill's sponsor and former prosecutor, Senator Jonathan Martin, told his colleagues that the most serious crime, like sexual battery on a child, that's what Miriam Francis went through, needs the most serious punishment and the most serious penalty and the most serious deterrent. Governor DeSantis believes the U.S. Supreme Court will uphold Florida's new child sexual battery law. This bill sets up a procedure to be able to challenge that precedent and to be able to say that in Florida we think that the worst of the worst crimes deserve the worst of the worst punishment, said Governor DeSantis. The legislation went into effect on October 1st, 2023, and allows the state of Florida to seek a death sentence when an adult is convicted of sexual battery of a child under the age of 12. I got a lot of thoughts on that age, but I'll just keep it quiet. Something funny going on here. Just go and look at some of the stuff that's going on in the California legislation, and you guys will see what I'm talking about. On December 14th, 2023, Lake County, Florida, prosecutors announced they would seek the first death sentence for a man accused of committing sexual battery of a minor under the age of 12. A statement from the Office of State Attorney William Gladson said the decision reflects the severity of the crime and its impact on the community. In February 2024, the defendant pled guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Okay, so that wasn't exactly what I thought. So, I always thought the death sentence meant, legal injection. States with proposed legislation. Arizona state senators introduced a bill in January 2024 that would add sexual conduct with a minor as an offense that can be punishable by death. Okay, then I was understanding it. The bill's sponsor has since filed an amendment to her own bill eliminating the death penalty. Now there's some tricky-dicky stuff going on here. The bill's sponsor has since filed an amendment to her own bill. Something funny going on. Eliminating the death penalty as a possible punishment. Does that make any sense to you guys? This amendment came after the bill was approved by committee and may change the bill's language. So they're giving the potential for death penalty, but they're taking it away. Idaho state representatives introduced legislation in January 2024 that will allow a capital sentence for lewd conduct with a minor under 12. So what happens to the children from 13 to 18? Or 13 to 17? If there are aggravating circumstances. You see that? That's the loop, you guys. But I mean, we got to have some kind of language. So, Missouri State Senator Mike Moon introduced legislation in December 2023 in January 2024 that would allow the death penalty for the offenses of statutory rape in the first degree and sexual trafficking of a child in the first degree. I want to see the prosecutions, you guys. That's what I want to see. Because talk is cheap. Republican state representatives in New Mexico introduced a bill in January 2024 that would make aggravated criminal sexual penetration and criminal sexual penetration of a child punishable by death. There's a lot of states here. You guys know more states are going to do this. You know that, right? South Carolina state representatives introduced legislation in both December 2023 and January 2024 that would allow the death penalty for persons who commit criminal sexual conduct with a victim under 11 years of age. You see how they keep dropping the age, you guys? I mean, it's important, but why are they so strict with the very, very young? You know what I mean? So, like, if a 12-year-old girl or boy has this happen to them, they can't prosecute the same way. You know what I mean? South Dakota state representatives introduced legislation in January 2024 that would allow the death penalty for the rape of a child age 12 and under. You know Tennessee don't play. Tennessee State Representative William Lamberth introduced a bill in January 2024 that would authorize the death penalty as a punishment for rape of a child, aggravated rape of a child, or especially aggravated rape of a child. So that's quite interesting, you guys. You guys know where I stand. So I will leave the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.